Welcome to this quick overview of Anaplan's Sales and Operations Planning app. In this overview, you will see how you can leverage existing enterprise resource planning data for forward-looking planning and analysis across your organization. This is accomplished using consistent sets of data, agreed-upon growth rates, and centralized data models so all business units are aligned. S&OP leaders begin by reconciling top-down and bottom-up forecasts in a dashboard that includes tools to test various volume scenarios and top-down forecasting assumptions. Before jumping in, it's helpful to review this app's high-level structure and intended reconciliation process. This overview graphic shows the high-level view of how data and interactive dashboards lead to a consolidated KPI outlook. The model is built upon historical actuals and a bottom-up forecast from an ERP system's demand planning functions. You can then layer on a top-down forecast and reconcile with the bottom-up detail and/or actual trending. We'll see how this is done in Anaplan shortly. Once a forecast is reconciled, the app leverages bill of materials data to project revenue, COGS, gross margin, plant labor, and inventory requirements. All operations planning modules include scenario planning features to visualize plan variations real time. Once all the scenario testing is agreed upon, a finance exec summary dashboard consolidates all of the data so everyone in the organization is aligned on key resource requirements. Let's jump into the app and begin. The landing page for managers is the Forecast Analysis and Reconciliation dashboard. This dashboard is intended to facilitate discussion and be used collaboratively with the product line managers to arrive at a consensus forecast. This dashboard is driven by units, so pricing-related forecast errors excluded. Let's start with a chart at the top. To simplify, I'll uncheck some lines so we have a cleaner view. We now see our bottom-up forecast for the next 12 months compared with our prior year actuals. The table below shows details on the percentage change. The current growth trending section shows how the bottom-up ERP forecast compares to the actual trending over the previous 6 and 12 months. When the variance between actual trending and the forecast exceeds a threshold, the cells are highlighted red. This is our cue to review and override with the top-down forecast if necessary. This is done utilizing the next two tables to the right. The top-down growth rate is where you enter a rate that will be used to generate the top-down forecast. The last 12-month actual column can be used as a guide when setting the top-down percentage. Then you have the option to use the bottom-up or top-down forecast for the rest of the operations planning modules. Now that we have an understanding of the dashboard, let's review a forecast. Let's start with the monosilicon hard blend. I'm going to add back the lines I removed from the chart earlier so we can get a better picture. By clicking on the brand name, the charts and data above automatically update to show just the brand we're reviewing. In this case, actual growth of negative 5.6% during the previous 6 months and 3.9% during the previous 12 months is quite a bit lower than the 15.9% the ERP statistical forecast is saying. Here, let's say that 5% is a better estimate and key that into the top-down growth rate for that brand. You'll see that by entering the 5%, the app recalculates and updates the chart to show the revised top-down forecast. Let's say we'd like this better than the bottom-up forecast. Select top-down from the drop-down in the Select Forecast Type section. Now all operations calculations will use the top-down forecast. The top-down forecast calculation uses seasonal sales curve and historical sales totals to create a monthly volume forecast. If needed, the sales curve can be modified by clicking on the Seasonality Settings button. On this dashboard, you can adjust the seasonality and select which type of curve you want to apply to a particular brand. This model comes with 2 curves, but more options can be added. Let's go back to the previous dashboard. Now that we have our forecast where we want it, let's see how our revenue, COGS, and gross margin looks. Click on the Revenue Outlook button. This dashboard takes a unit volume parameter set in the previous screen and sales price and cost info to project your next 12-month revenue, COGS, and gross margin. You can adjust the revenue by modifying margin settings to see how margin adjustments by brand impact the overall gross margin. Let's update one by changing the margin from 32 to 35%. As you can see, the change triggers instant recalculations throughout the model and results are displayed. Now let's see how much inventory we'll need in order to produce all these goods. Clicking on the Inventory Outlook button above takes us to the next planning dashboard. In this example, we have 7 main types of raw materials that will be needed. Inventory requirements are charted for review. To the right, you can see the projected values for various states of inventory-related cash. You can also see projected inventory turnover rate right here. Safety stock can make up a large percentage of a company's inventory, so there's some scenario testing available to simulate various strategies. Using the drop-down, let's change the setting. Once again, the app recalculates and updates the dashboard. Now that we have inventory, we need to think about direct manufacturing labor. Clicking on the Plant Labor Outlook button takes us to the next dashboard. Here we use our unit forecast and bill of materials data again to project labor requirements. In this dashboard, we added an additional dimension of manufacturing plants. This dimension wasn't necessary for other operations planning, but is quite useful for labor planning. This way, managers can assess when and where employees need to be scheduled based on a product's labor routings and where it will be shipping from. We again have some scenario testing options. Let's say we've been building the products more efficiently than the standard hours in the bill of materials. Clicking on the drop-down and selecting an aggressive strategy, adjust the labor needs by the percentage indicated below. These percentages can be configured by clicking on the Manage Scenarios button. If we scroll down, we'll see a set of calculations that project how many full-time equivalents or FTEs we'll need to produce to the forecast. This is then compared against FTEs currently scheduled to show the variance. The variance is highlighted if there is a shortfall. If operations leaders decide that it would be better to use overtime as opposed to hiring, they can test scenarios by adding overtime hours on a per employee basis. Let's use this to address a shortfall in August. By adding 2.5 hours of overtime, we can cover the labor needs. Overtime does come at a higher cost, so that is shown in the last section. Now that we've reviewed all of our operations planning dashboards, let's see how it all comes together. Clicking on the Home tab, then selecting the Finance Exec Summary dashboard. This dashboard summarizes all the key resource requirements and presents a consolidated plan for the next 12 months. Before ending this demo, it's important to note that no two sales and operations planning processes are the same. This app was created based on common methods and calculations, and those calculations should be modified when applicable to match your business, ERP calculations, or industry. Thank you for watching.